Small Museums Down Under with Jim Pike.
I'm here today in Bowraville, which is a town on the mid-north coast of New South Wales with a population around 900 plus people. It was famous as the veranda post town. Now, if you don't know what a veranda post is, it's one of those things that holds up a veranda. If you don't know what a veranda is, well, you're obviously not from around here. But there's something worth seeing. In fact, two things. Two museums. We're going to see one of them right now, and it's the Bowraville Folk Museum, and it's really worth a look. You're going to enjoy this. Every small town has a small museum, but the thing with some of the small museums is once you get inside, they're a lot bigger than you think they are. And this one has absolutely everything, because all the history in the area, when the families move on or they've got too much stuff, they'll donate it somewhere, and it ends up here, and you never know what you'll see, like this thing, for instance. What's that? I'll show you. Back in the days with department stores, before there were credit cards and things like that, people didn't quite trust the sales assistants. So what would happen, you'd come in, you'd pick your item, you'd give them the money. The money would then be put inside this. This comes out, money goes in there, put that there, and you pull this handle and it goes up there. And up there would be the secretary or whatever, they'd take the money, put the receipt in here, boing, and back she'd come, and there you go. And they were all like that. You took your life in your hands in department stores in those days. Didn't think I'd see one of those again. This is Ryan's cottage. It was brought to the museum in the 1960s, and it's 2 rooms from an original place about 20 minutes out of town that was built in between the 1840s and 1880s. While we were looking, we ran into Mick, who's actually a descendant of the guy who built this place. G'day, Mick. How you going?
How you going, mate?
We came to look at the history, but we didn't expect to meet some. You've got a direct connection with Ryan's cottage.
Yes, this was actually on the south side of our mission. We had 120 odd acres.
Yeah.
And I think it was my great-great-great-grandfather. The Ryans owned the property. The Boyles were cedar cutters and loggers. And then the Thorntons were the river people who took it down the Macleay or out the mouth at the Nambucca. So, yeah, 3 lines of the family have been here since way back. Yeah,
Gee, it must be a buzz to walk in there.
Oh, look, I've discovered so much about the history, and what I call it is the Black Irish nexus, if you like, because, Aboriginal, Irish and Scottish settlers immediately understood Aboriginal things like brown jacks, like leprechauns. They understood the spirituality. The stories of the Ryans not cutting down a particular stand of trees. It was a birthing tree.
That's great.
So there's a lot of that consciousness and melding of Celtic Gaelic with the Aboriginals. So I've been teaching here now for 32 years, but I only just realised that, I've always felt like I had roots here, but couldn't prove it. But I did coach the Barrow Goannas to their first premiership, under 18s. There you go. Go Barrow, knock them down, Barrow.
Naturally, in every museum like this, there's a lot of bone china. And I remember reading in one of the many wars that England fought, it was a time that ships came into Bristol with loads of bones from battlefields, and they'd sell them off to the china companies, Wedgwood or whatever, and they'd crush them all up and use them to make the whiteness in the bone china. So, if your Uncle Harry was killed in the Crimea, he could be in your cup of tea, you never know. If you're into models, this is a great one, because Bowraville was a timber town, and they got a lot of the timber from here down to the headwaters on one of these, a droga, which is basically powered barge really, but it brought everything up and down the river for all the river towns. That's good news for sheep who might be scared of getting shorter with age. We didn't have one of those when I was a kid, but we had something like that. The old hand wringer that you'd use, but what we didn't have, and I've never seen before, is a hand washing machine. Obviously for someone who lives alone. But it also says a dry cleaner. I don't know what you do with that. No matter what you're interested in, it's here. Everything. Shoes made in London, beer made in Victoria. Look at the way these keys have been cut. They're normally straight cut along there, and these have gone to all the trouble. There's not enough keys that work. I've got a piano from 1884, and it came out from England and via India and Scotland and several other places. I had an old fellow out to do a bit of work on it and showed me how to pull them apart. And these old sort of things, only about 4 screws holds the whole front on. And when it comes out, the rest of it's like a big auto harp. When you just see clean the rats out and everything else that's died inside it, and you can actually bit of mucking around. You could figure out how to do some of it yourself, but obviously it's a job for a professional. But it's interesting how they work. And this is in beautiful condition, considering it's, come all the way from England. In the days before you plugged pianos in to play them, you had to pedal them. This is a harmonium, or sort of a harmonium. It's a cross between that and a small organ. Didn't make you go any faster, but you've got good leg muscles, and the bellows are made out of leather. You always tell the organists by their thighs. This is believed to be the first piano that came into the Nambucca Valley, brought in a horse and cart in the 1880s. And there was no electricity, so if you needed to see your sheet music, this was a good idea. This is interesting, a telephone exchange. I had a toy one of these as a kid. Why my parents gave me a toy telephone exchange, I have no idea. But you had to pull the leads out. Someone wanted a certain number, and it'd be there. You'd have to plug that in, ring the little thing out, and it would ring the bell at their end, and the call would go through. When you come to museums, you get sort of nostalgic about things, but there's also a bit of a wake-up call that you realise that the things that you grew up with are now in a museum. This is a desk. If you were a radio announcer, disc jockey, you'd be working this at a radio station. My first station, 1975, it wasn't too far away from this, but you can see they've upgraded it. Look, CD player, whoa. And even because techs don't trust disc jockeys, they had to colour code it. See? Nothing changes. But you know how these days they've got the fuel stoves to heat the houses, and they've got these little fans now they put on top of them? Spirit stove. Nothing's new. Spirit stove, you've got kerosene or whatever in there, and then you switch this on and the heat turns the fan and it blows it into the room. Nothing new. The history of photography is basically here through the history of the town. Right from the early days, those still plates where nobody smiled. You were frozen, looked at camera. And the days when they'd hand colour, touch it up so that you give your moustache a bit more of a twirl. But it's great that the town has had a place where, what do we do with these old stuff? We'll give it to the museum, and it's all here on show, and it's the people who built the town and the area and all their descendants. Central processor with 1 megabyte of memory. This is a perfect place for those who are nostalgic about where they worked, pushing buttons. It's all done on something this big now. Oh, that's not fair. I've still got a fax machine like that. Someone's taking the piss now. I think up near the top of the list of things I would never do would be ride one of these. It's just absolutely terrifying. I can't understand why you would invent it, much less have someone come along and go, "That's a good idea, I'll give you money for it." Just scary. This is kind of spooky. I come down here and she looks important, and I want to ask her something, and I'm pretty convinced that she could sort it out. Probably better than most councils. This, by the way, is from the old council chambers. Just when you thought you'd seen it all, there's a whole world outside here that is just incredible. Including this. Isn't the last thing you'd expect to see in a small country town miles away from the ocean? I know people brought souvenirs back from the war, but this is ridiculous. Washed up on a beach. I know how it feels. And it certainly wouldn't be a country town museum without a tack room and a blacksmith shop. Wow. Years and years and years. Hard work, all these things, and they're still around. This place has everything, even a car. 26 to 28 Dodge Tourer, owned by a local and restored by a local. Amazing. That's the lesson, kiddies. Never throw anything away. During the war, when there was no fuel, they'd convert cars to working on charcoal, and that produced gas. They were strapped to the back of cars or trucks or whatever, and put charcoal in it, and it produced gas, and the gas drove the cars. And absolutely terrifyingly dangerous, I would think. Now you know what a corn husker does. It husks corn. I don't know. Still works though. This is a bit of Australian ingenuity. This is a Howard rotavator or some deal like that, not sure. But the Howard V-twin engines were pretty interesting, very similar to old Harley engines. In fact, if you ever go to the National Motorcycle Museum in Nambucca, someone's built a bike with one of these old agricultural engines in it. Something I wasn't expecting to see. It's a hot water service from a construction site when they were building the Snowy River scheme, Snowy Mountain scheme, and it ended up here. Wow, it's a long way to bring something that heavy. If you're into rocks, minerals, fossils, don't worry, because there's something here for you too in this collection. Private collection donated to the museum and added to over the years. I like a nice rock. If the brown rocks are a bit boring for you, there are even shiny rocks that glow in the dark. I don't know why they do that, but I'm glad they do. Probably radioactive. It's one of the big claims to fame of the town is it was the scene of the movie The Umbrella Woman, way back in the 1980s. Rachel Ward, Brian Brown and Sam Neill, no less, have all walked through here because this was included in the movie, this is part of the set. Nothing is left out. It's all here. Pill making machines, everything, dentist chair, beds, it's just anything that's ever happened in this town is in this place. Every town has its war memorial, and when you stop to have a look, there's so many of the same family names from the First World War, the Second World War, Korean War, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and on and on. And Bowraville has more than that. It has this room as part of the museum that commemorates all the locals who fell in service. And it's pretty impressive. Pretty sad too. I keep saying this place has everything. It even has a local church that was moved here. It's pretty amazing. If you're in Bowraville, you've got to come here. It's fantastic. But there's also another museum here, the Frank Partridge VC Memorial Museum, that is a really impressive military museum. And that's coming up in another episode. I'll see you then.
Small Museums Down Under with Jim Pike.